Welcome to Chapter 24, Performance Appraisals. Performance appraisals are a challenging management leader skill. We have to be mindful that it can be an emotionally charged event. It can be stressful depending on what the person's prior experience with performance appraisals has been. When a performance appraisal is being done, we're measuring actual behavior, not intended behavior, not suggested behavior, but we're measuring what has actually been done over a course of time. When it's done well, it can have a very positive outcome. When a manager prepares to begin performance appraisals, it's important to use a standard set of metrics or benchmarks to assess all nurses or all staff. If you're going to be doing a performance appraisals for a new nurse, then you need to use the same standards for every new nurse to ensure that you're accurate and you are measuring consistently across your employee pool. During a performance appraisal, it's important that employees have some input into the development of the standards and goals for which their performance is going to be judged. You need their ideas and thoughts about what they think they have done well on and what areas they need to grow in and ways that they need to improve. If an employee believes that the appraisal is based on their job description, it's objective, they're more likely to view the appraisal as relevant. Effective performance appraisals have a positive outcome when they are viewed with trust and professional respect. You want to avoid surprises. You want to be viewing and assessing and appraising staff on a continual basis. There need to be checkpoints along the year of giving employees feedback and helping them understand ways that they can improve, not just once a year in their annual evaluation. We talked about the requirement for standards. The other thing that we need to do is make sure employees know how we're going to get information that will be used on their performance appraisal. And we want to talk with people who directly work with the employee, and then make sure that the appraiser who provides the feedback to the employee directly supervises the employee. We want to be mindful that the employee's past experiences with performance appraisals, whether negative or positive, may affect their perception of the appraisal process. The entire purpose of a performance appraisal is professional growth. A good appraisal includes positive and negative, not overwhelmingly negative, feedback and coaching that has a plan for growth in the future. Some employees look at their annually performance review as an opportunity to receive positive feedback from their supervisor, especially if the employee receives infrequent praise on a day-to-day basis. You want to avoid the appraisal process, that annual appraisal process, to being too significant for the employee. It should not be the only time they get feedback. Their appraisal process should have no surprises. They should have regularly heard that they're doing things well, or regularly heard that they have opportunities for improvement. Appraisal processes should not be a sneak attack. Indirect and ambiguous standards or feedback are more likely to inhibit communication than enhance it. An employee is left with not being clear about what their expectations are or what your opinion of their work really is. I've kept this email. It's an email that was sent to the nursing department at my other employer that basically wanted to address a performance issue, but did it in a way that I thought was unique. The email says, "Okay, folks, whoever tried to make a copy of their coffee, you know who you are. Please know that it spilled down into the machine and could have ruined the boards and cost us thousands of dollars to fix. If you want more coffee, please use the coffee pots in the kitchen and quit trying to copy your coffee on the copy machines." Enough said. I viewed this, and of course I wasn't the one that poured the coffee or spilled it down the copier. I'm not a coffee drinker, so I immediately knew I was innocent. I read this and I thought, okay, if you were the person that had your coffee cup sitting on the computer or the printer and it spilled and this was the outcome, how would you feel about this being the email? What would your perception be? Would you feel shame and embarrassment? Would you be able to read this and go, okay, they're pointing it out, I shouldn't have done it, and I know now that I need to do something differently when I'm handling my coffee. I read this and see this as someone using a sense of humor, trying to make a point about something that could have really had could have had a very negative outcome. Remember how you communicate during the appraisal process. Hopefully it's formative and summative throughout the year. Your approach matters. And if your approach is to use a little bit of humor, your folks expect that. They know that that's who you are. If your approach is a very direct approach, your folks know that. But what you want to do is however you give feedback, you want to be consistent, and you want to do it routinely throughout the year. And I personally enjoy a little bit of humor. I may have been more humored by this because I was an innocent party. Manager's duties and performance appraisals. This is a good list, and I want you to read through this and know it. This is a summary of some performance appraisal tools. I want to call attention to a few that are not put in as detailed on this list. Rating scales are a method of rating a person against a set standard, which may be the job description, desired behaviors, or a personal trait. It's probably the most widely used, and it's the most available appraisal method. Management by objectives is when the employee and the supervisor meet and agree on principal duties and responsibilities of the employee's job. The employee sets short-term goals and target dates in cooperation with the supervisor or manager. The entire focus is on the outcome and the results, not on personal traits. The 360-degree evaluation, also called a peer evaluation, includes an assessment by all individuals within the sphere of influence of the individual being appraised. It has great potential for developing professional accountability, but it can be also very difficult to implement. A note about peer evaluations: if you are given the opportunity to do a peer evaluation, I'm going to encourage you to be thoughtful and thorough and honest when you're giving feedback. If you're asked to evaluate someone that you don't feel like you can give an honest feedback for, I want you to go to your manager and leader and tell them that. You do not want to do a peer evaluation that on a scale of 1 to 5 gives everybody a 3 because you're upset with them, but you don't want them to know that you're upset with them. You also don't want to give someone all 1s, implying that they're doing a terrible job, but then not give detailed explanations about why they have earned a 1 in an area. You also don't want to give everyone 5s without explaining how they were so exceptional in exceeding organizational standards. Wherever you are when you're doing a peer review, be honest with the person who's asked you to do the review, and then be honest when you do the review. This is an example of a trait rating scale that you can review. This is a sample of a scale used that is based on job dimensions. Again, this is just an example. When we think about performance management, there are 2 areas I want to call your attention to. And we've talked about this one, coaching, a few chapters ago. We want to remind you that the coaching is when an effective manager and an astute leader are aware that day-to-day feedback regarding performance is one of the best methods for improving work performance and building a team approach. Meeting with employees on a regular basis, coaching positive skills, encouraging goal setting and personal accountability for professional development comes under that coaching step, and it's such a underused skill for many leaders. The other type of coaching that's out there is reflective practice or clinical coaching, and this is when the manager or mentor meets with the employee regularly to discuss aspects of their work. Both individuals determine the agenda jointly with the goal of an environment of learning that can span personal and professional aspects of an employee's experience. General coaching has more of an overall approach, whereas reflective practice or clinical coaching really is about skill development. These are strategies for becoming an effective coach. I want you to read through these. Pitfalls for performance management. I'm going to hit some of these because they're not as clear. The halo effect occurs when the appraiser lets one or two positive aspects of the assessment or behavior of the employee unduly to influence all of the aspects of the employee's performance. Let me give you an example. You have someone that's a marginal employee but is super nice. They remember everybody's birthday and bake them a cake every single time. But their performance in the unit is not where it needs to be. Instead of giving the person a 2, you give them a 3 because you know they have a good heart. That's a halo effect. The horn effect is the exact opposite. It occurs when the appraiser allows some negative aspects of the employee's performance to influence the assessment to such an extent that other levels of the job performance are not accurately recorded. Let me give you an example. You have an employee who is a stellar nurse. They are reliable, they give safe care, they have good patient reports, but they have unprofessional language. You will hear them cursing like a sailor, walking up and down the hallways without paying attention to how unprofessional that behavior is. Instead of giving them a 4 for being exceptional, you give them a 2 because the perception is they're not consistently professional. It doesn't mean that you don't address the behavior, but you don't want to address it so harshly that it overshadows their entire quality and exceptional behaviors. Central tendency means that everyone fits around the average score. That's typically a corporate decision where you have a corporate scale of 1 to 5 on ranking employees and their proficiency and skill and success. And corporate says that the average needs to be, everyone needs to average around a 3. So that means you can only have so many 1s and 2s and so many 3s, 4s and 5s so that everyone averages out. The use of central tendency is not well regarded by many staff, and most managers are even less happy with it because there are times that your department is running on all cylinders and is doing exceptional work and everybody really is at a 4 and 5, but a central tendency forces it to be reported as a 3, and that harms morale and demotivates a team. Contrast error is comparing employees. Imagine comparing the employee who bakes a cake to the employee who has poor professional verbiage. How they would never come out is equal, so you make one look better than the other. You want to compare the individual according to the standards of the department, not against one another. Recency often occurs when a recent issue has weighed more heavily than past performances. Let's go back to your employee who does an excellent job as a strong nurse, has not had any behavioral performance issues, and 2 weeks before their performance appraisal has a med error. And you use that med error because it was a serious med error that overshadows the whole evaluation, lowering that individual's performance score for the whole year, without looking at the fact that it was a single error. It just happened to occur more recently. I'm going to encourage you as new nurse leaders a way to mitigate or avoid the recency effect is to keep extemporaneous notes about the performance and behavior and professionalism of all of your staff in your own record keeping system, so that when it comes time to do an annual performance appraisal, you can open up John Smith's employee record and you can see the notes from patients that said he gave good care, or you can see the minutes from a committee he was on, or you can see the post-it note you wrote that he stayed late twice one week because someone was having car trouble. You'll remember all those things if you leave yourself notes about those things in an organized way that help you remember the things that need to be addressed in an annual evaluation.